I know what you're thinking. Wind Waker HD solved so many problems from the original game, which was already a masterpiece of art, music, controls, gameplay, etc. to begin with. What on earth can this chick possibly have to say about what is arguably the greatest remake of all time? It's about those sweet, sweet Triforce charts, and I'm gonna prove it with science. In case you needed another reason to feel old today, it's been almost a decade since the release of the Wind Waker HD, and that was a decade after the original game was released in the US. And yes, the HD version did fix a lot of things in the game that aggravated players, and even fix some things that we didn't even know we wanted fixed. Pictobox selfies, improved swinging, moving in first person, new graphics, shortened cutscenes, Medley and Mock are following you through doors, not falling off the boat every single time you get hit, text displaying faster, the bombs on the boat having an aiming system, the list goes on. Small improvements were made that really do perfect the game, and I'm not going to argue with that. No, besides the swift sail being, a little counterproductive to what the game is about, it's called the Wind Waker because you use the Wind Waker to... just kidding. This sail does exactly the same thing. Glad that just anyone can own this as it's for sale at an auction. I understand its practical use. It's nice to not have to bust out the Wind Waker for every single little thing on the sea. Personally, I don't think it took that much time to sail between the islands, but I get it. The Wii U can load the whole Great Sea at once, and the GameCube hardware couldn't do that. I get it. But what I don't understand, and what I will argue with, is the shortening of the main quest during the most non-linear part of the quest, just for the sake of shortening the playtime. And just how did they do that? So the last major thing that you do in the game before going to face Ganon is collecting the 8 pieces of the Triforce of Courage, which have been scattered around the Great Sea. In the GameCube version, Tingle gives you the Incredible chart, which tells you the locations of the 8 Triforce charts. Once you find those charts, you have to take them to Tingle to get deciphered, because you can't read them yourself. This is a hefty cost at 398 rupees per chart. Each chart and shard are in different sectors of the sea. This whole video is like a giant tongue twister. I am really trying hard not to say, yeah. In the HD remake, Tingle still gives you the Incredible chart, but the number of charts that you have to collect is limited to 3. The locations of the remaining 5 Triforce shards are on the Incredible chart from the moment that you get it. So overall, you pay Tingle less money. In the original GameCube version of the game, if you didn't have enough money to pay Tingle, the fastest way to acquire that money was to bust open those treasure charts and start hunting for ones you haven't collected yet, because a lot of them are silver rupees, which are worth 200 rupees apiece. But you did have to go exploring for them. In the HD version, though, the cost of what you have to pay Tingle has been more than halved, so the chances that you have to go looking for extra treasure are considerably slimmer. You don't have to go exploring as much in order to complete the game. Or at least, that's what it looks like. Does the HD version of Wind Waker discourage exploration? Now is as good a time as any to state that I know this isn't like the for real, legitimate scientific method. It's just for jokes. This is a YouTube video. If I have to listen to people make the joke, what's the difference between a violin and a fiddle? A violin has strings and a fiddle has strings every day of my life, then some of you sciencey types can handle me joking about a video game that came out 10 years ago using a thing that they teach 7th graders. It's not that deep. It's for laughs. If you can believe it, for a Zelda game that came out in 2003, Wind Waker is a semi-open world game. The first half of the game is fairly linear, but you are free to explore most areas. Much like Breath of the Wild, there are some areas that you might not have the stats to get to yet. The second half of the game is way freer and allows the player to explore the world as they choose, at their own pace, now that they have completed their inventory to the extent that they can beat the game. Now, with only some vague directions from Tingle's Incredible chart, the player now has to scour the sea for those delicious Triforce shards. And the process is daunting. Find the Triforce charts, find the Ghost Ship chart, use it to find the Ghost Ship, get that Triforce chart, get enough money to pay Tingle a crazy amount of money to decipher them all. Pay Tingle that crazy amount of money to decipher them all. Use the charts to find the Triforce pieces. So yeah, it's kind of involved, but also, it's the Triforce. the most sacred and powerful object in the entire franchise. Diegetically and non-diegetically, it should be kind of hard to acquire. I don't think that's the right use of the word diegetic. You know what I mean. For the player and in universe, the Triforce should be kind of hard to get. But again, this should be a time to relish the open worldness of the game, because by this point you've collected all your items, so there are no more areas or islands that you can't get to. You worked hard for that hookshot in the toughest and most rewarding to 100% dungeon in the entire game. Don't you want to use it? Don't you want the opportunity to get up to that tree? Don't you want to know what's in that mysterious hole in the ground? Of course you do. Don't you want to explore? So here's my hypothesis. If a player does only what is required for the main quest of the game, the player will see less of the world in the HD version compared to the GameCube version of the game. I am prepared to be wrong. So let me walk you through how I'm gonna do this, and then we can go on this journey together. I've made this giant sea chart out of foam board so that you and I can clearly visualize what we're doing and where we're going together. Also, I love arts and crafts. I'm going to map out Wind Waker's main quest only on this chart. Using this little legend here, we can keep track of what is a required Triforce piece for the original, for the HD version, what islands we have visited, what islands were required by the main quest, etc. On this whiteboard, I'm going to keep track of what treasure charts we have picked up, and what treasures we have salvaged. The path that we're going to take is the path of least resistance. This means the shortest distance from destination to destination, while also being the most reasonably efficient. Once we get the ability to warp, we will use that ability as much as possible to cut down on sailing time. Again, this path assumes that the player only wants to do the main quest of the game, what is required to beat the game, and that they will take no extra stops except for what is obvious and reasonable. By obvious and reasonable, I mean islands that are directly between islands required for the main quest. So for example, we first travel from Windfall to Dragon Roost. The first time that we do this, Paw Print Isle lies right in between those two, and it wouldn't be unreasonable for a player to stop there along the way, because it's literally right between the two. This path also assumes that the player will do minimal exploration of the Great Sea and no backtracking except for what is required by the main quest. But while they are on an island, they will do all that they can possibly do. Now, of course, some people are not going to get everything there is possibly to get on every island. Some people will explore every nook and cranny of every single island. Some people will go around the whole sea to try to fill out the whole sea chart. Some people won't. I can't factor for all these possibilities. I mean, this is a YouTube video. This is not a peer-reviewed paper or a funded study. This is like barely more credible than Andrew Wakefield. So I've done my best to try to average it out between the two. Every item that can be found either on an island or on your boat in that sector will be found, as well as doing obvious side quests from NPCs like on Windfall. My rationale here is that, well, I'm on this island, might as well get everything I can done while I'm here. At the end, I will subtract the amount of money that you've had to spend on bait, the cost of the bait bag, the cost of the sail, and the cost of postage for the incredible chart. I will tally it all up and we'll see how much money we've collected. I can't factor in the cost of auctions or how much money you might spend playing the Battle Squid game, but I'll address this at the end. I'm going to do this process twice, once for the original version of the game and once for the HD version. Also, I will be referring to the King of Red Lions as Boat because it's funny. Hey, so if you don't necessarily care about going through the process of finding and collecting all of these numbers, and you trust my method of data collection, then go ahead and skip ahead to this time code for final math and analysis of these numbers. However, if you would like to see the process and you're curious as to how I arrived at the numbers, keep watching. Let's start with the original version of the game. Fasten your seatbelts. If you are so inclined and you have paper and pencil ready, you can follow along by writing down the islands we visit, the charts we pick up, and when we salvage the associated treasures. We started outside Island, and there's 100 rupees in a chest underneath Grandma's house. We're gonna go ahead and write that down under salvage. The pirates come and get you and take you to the Forsaken Fortress, but we don't have any power over the islands that they visit. Technically, the Forsaken Fortress, the first time you visit it, is not even the same place that you visit coding stuff. Anyway, your adventure really begins at Windfall. Boop. While you're at Windfall Isle, you can pick up charts 7 and 23. 7, 23. So these charts can be picked up if you do all there is to do currently on Windfall Island. Now, unfortunately, I can't take into account the amount of money that you spend playing Battle Squid, because it's an infamous minigame in the Zelda series. It's a rupee killer. You can win a piece of heart and 2 Triforce charts from playing this game, so it's probably going to take you a lot of tries. Once you pay for the sale, which I will account for the cost of at the end, you can actually leave the island. Your first destination spot post-Windfall is Dragon Roost. Dragon Roost. And of course, again, like I said, the obvious stop between the two being Paw Print. So we're just gonna take our little Pepe ribbon and whoop. Ta-da, I did it. If you stop at Paw Print, you can pick up chart 34 from the divers. Chart 34. Oh gosh, these plastic edges are sharper than the text. Do I look unhinged yet? Once you're on Dragon Roost, you can pick up charts 11 and 39 from Dragon Roost Cavern. You can salvage chart 39 immediately as it's on Dragon Roost. 39. Boop. 39 is 200 rupees. So when you're leaving Dragon Roost, Fishman pops up and he says that he will mark the spots on your chart for you. From here on out, you have to put some bait on the water when you see him jumping, and then he'll mark it for you. But as of right now, you have 4 freebies on your chart, which are Outset, Windfall, the Forsaken Fortress, and now Dragon Roost. But from here on out, you have to pay for bait. Your next main quest destination is Forest Haven. And you will pass southward. The easiest way to get there is to pass through Fire Mountain, East Triangle, and Bomb. Unfortunately, there's nothing to do on any of these islands just yet, but you have marked them on your chart. So, boop. Delicious. Okay. Once you're at Forest Haven and you do the Forbidden Woods dungeon, you can get charts 1 and 15 from that dungeon. And once you've got the Deku Leaf, go to one of the little side islands and you can pick up chart 3 as well. 1, 15, and 3. Your next main quest destination is Great Fish. Now, the thing about Great Fish, you can just set the wind for northwest and go in a straight line, but it's not the fastest way. In fact, a new player is going to get frustrated because they can tell that they're not going the full speed the whole time. So there is a split in our path here. The first path goes Ice Ring, South Ferry, Stone Watcher, Great Fish. And the second path goes Private Oasis, Six Eye, Cyclops, Great Fish. Either way, you only have to change the direction of the wind twice in order to take the most efficient path. I'm going to mark both of these, but the thing is that it doesn't really matter which path you take because there's nothing that you can do at any of these islands just yet. So we have a split in the path. So you arrive at Great Fish, and again, there's nothing that you can do just yet. After you do Great Fish, you have to go back to Windfall. The second time that you're at Windfall, you can get charts 24 and 29. So let's go to Windfall with a brief stop at Tingle along the way. 24, 29. Your next destination is Outset, and Outset is a long way away. And as such, we have another split in the path. Path A goes Northern Triangle, Six Eye Reef, Southern Triangle, Shark to Outset. The second path goes Windfall, Tingle, Great Fish, Islet of Steel, Five Eye Reef, Outset. Again, whichever split you take, whichever path you take in the split is inconsequential. There's nothing that you can do treasure collecting wise on any of these islands yet. Once you get to Outset, you can get the wallet upgrade, which you will definitely need. Once you're done here, Boat tells you to go to the Triangle Islands because now you're going to place the 3 pearls that you've collected. The path of least resistance to getting around the Triangle Islands is to go back kind of the way that you came if you took that split from Outset to Shark, Southern Triangle, Six Eye Reef, Northern Triangle, pass briefly through Eastern Fairy Island, and then hit Eastern Triangle. It doesn't really matter if you go the other way. You've already kind of been here, and there's nothing you can do anyway, so it doesn't matter. But path looks like this. Southern Triangle, 6-eye, Northern Triangle. You're going to pass through Eastern Fairy Island very briefly, Eastern Triangle. And of course, that takes you to Tower of the Gods. For the sake of consistency, I'm going to mark the Triangle Islands with the pink because you do have to go there. From Eastern Fairy Island, you can salvage chart 34, and from East Triangle Island, you can salvage chart 3. 34 and 3. Both of these are silver rupees. Yay. Inside the Tower of the Gods, you can pick up charts 6 and 30. Now, be really careful when you're in there because one of these is hard to find. So look around, use your compass, all that jazz. Here's where things go off the rails. After you finish the Tower of the Gods, Boat tells you that it's time to go save your sister from the Forsaken Fortress for real this time. And of course, the path of least resistance to get there involves sailing through Northern Triangle Isle. And here, you encounter the god Cyclos. And if you defeat Cyclos, he will give you the ability to warp around the Great Sea in designated spots. I marked them in pink. And you know that the Forsaken Fortress is way up here, right? So what's the fastest way to get there? Well, using your newfound ability, it looks like this is the spot that's going to take you there the fastest. So you get your Wind Waker out and you go to Mother and Child Isles. But you get there and something's amiss. Inside where you warp is not accessible from the outside. But you encounter the Queen of the Fairies, or whoever she is, and she gives you a sweet, sweet upgrade to that bow that you just got. And now you can shoot fire arrows and ice arrows. The only way out is the same way you came in. You have to warp out. So going to the next nearest warp spot with the path of least resistance takes you to Tingle. From there, you sail northwest to the Forsaken Fortress. Tingle, Mother and Child. Now you're at the Forsaken Fortress. When you pass through Mother and Child Isles from the outside, you can actually pick up a chart there. You can salvage a chart there. You can salvage the treasure from chart 29, which is a silver rupee. I'm gonna go ahead and cross off the ones that we've already gotten. So 39, 34, 3, 29. So you do the Forsaken Fortress. And then once you beat that, the cutscene takes you to the Tower of the Gods. So you wind up there. You didn't sail there. There's nothing to get on the way there because it's a cutscene. Do all the Master Sword stuff. Whatever. When you come back up to the Great Sea, Boat tells you that you have to restore the power of the Master Sword by visiting the Earth Temple and the Wind Temple, which are Headstone and Gale. No matter which one you visit first, you can easily warp to islands that you've already been to one square over in order to access them. The order doesn't matter here, so let's start with Headstone. You can't get into Headstone. Fishman tells you the only way to get into Headstone is to get the power bracelets, which you can get from Fire Mountain. The fastest way to get to Fire Mountain is to warp to either Tower of the Gods or Dragon Roost. It doesn't matter, you've been to both of those places. Sail to Fire Mountain, shoot the ice arrow, get the power bracelets, warp to either Outset or Southern Ferry, and sail back to Headstone. You go inside, and the sage tells you to find the person with the harp. The person with the harp is Medley, which admittedly could be a little difficult to find out, but hopefully you take the visual cue from Naruto that she's wearing exactly the same outfit that Medley is wearing. So you warp to Dragon Roost, you get Medley, warp back to Outset, sail to Headstone, do the Earth Temple. Whew. There are 2 charts in the Earth Temple and 1 in a submarine in that sector. They are charts 12, 14, and 20. If one of your warp destinations happens to be Southern Fairy Island at any point, and it's almost certain that you will go there, from one of the many times you have to warp and sail to Headstone, you can pick up chart 40. And, good news, you can salvage chart 40 on Headstone Island, not on, but in that sector, almost immediately. The process we did for the Earth Temple must be repeated for the Wind Temple. The fastest way to do Gale Isle is to sail to warp to Windfall. Sail north to Gale. You can't get in there because the winds are too strong. Fishman tells you that you need you need the Iron Boots, and the Iron Boots are at Ice Ring. So you warp to Forest Haven or Southern Ferry, it doesn't matter. You sail to Ice Ring, and then you shoot the fire arrow, you do all that stuff. You get the Iron Boots, you warp back to Windfall, sail to Gale, and then the sage inside tells you to find the person with the instrument, which is Makar, which admittedly can be a little bit difficult to figure out. Hopefully you take the visual cue that Makar was literally playing that instrument earlier in the game. So you warp to Forest Haven, get Makar, warp to Windfall, and sail north to Gale, do the Wind Temple. Whew. Back up for a second. When you visit Ice Ring, you can pick up chart 36. Now, if at any point on your journey back and forth from Gale, you stop at Windfall, there is a lot to do. This includes getting the stuff that's up for auction. So from Windfall, you can get charts 18, 31, 33, 38, assuming that you have the deluxe Picto box, which at this point in the game you can get. You can pick up chart 18 right away, and chart 18 is a cool 1 rupee. From the Wind Temple, you can pick up charts 5 and 35. While you're here, you can salvage the treasure from 31, which is a piece of heart. It is not a silver rupee, it's a piece of heart. Now, I know what you're thinking. Aileron, you can't beat the Wind Temple. You didn't get the magic upgrade from 2i Reef from saving the fairy. Well, you can beat the Wind Temple without the magic upgrade. The island where the magic upgrade is located, which is 2i Reef, is never visited in the main quest in either the original or the HD version of the game. It's difficult, but it's possible. If 10-year-old me can beat this game without L targeting at all because I didn't want to hit the bumpers, because I guess I was a really stupid 10-year-old, I don't know, then an adult can definitely beat this game without the magic upgrade. If Aaron Video Game Boy Hansen can beat it without the magic upgrade, you can too.
Oh no, I'm on magic again! No. Fuck!
After you're done with the Wind Temple, Boat tells you that it's time to collect all 8 pieces of the Triforce. Hopefully at this point you've already acquired the Incredible Chart and you've paid the 201 rupee postage for it. Again, I will account for that at the end. Looking at our Incredible Chart, you can see the location of all 8 Triforce charts, which I have marked on this map with green dots. Let's start at the top of the map and work down, though the order doesn't have an effect on your overall numbers, so it doesn't matter. But for the sake of what we're doing, I'm going to start at the top and work down. So you're going to warp to Dragon Roost and sail northeast to Overlook Island. Your next stop is Needle Rock, which is here, so you need to warp to Great Fish in order to get there and sail southwest. While you're at Needle Rock, there is 100 rupees in a treasure chest that is for the taking. I'm going to add that up here. Sail east from Needle Rock to the Islet of Steel to get the next chart. And while you're there, you can salvage the treasure from chart 35, which is a silver rupee. 35. Keep sailing east to Stonewatcher, boop, 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 and you can collect the next chart. Now you've got a couple of choices. You can either warp to Southern Fairy Island or the Tower of the Gods and sail to the private oasis, or you can just sail straight through South Triangle again. It doesn't matter, but you do need to go to the private oasis. And hopefully on one of your many, many stops at Windfall, you have gotten the Cabana deed from Mrs. Marie. Once you are at the private oasis, you pick up the 5th Triforce chart, as well as chart 27. And you can salvage the treasure from chart number 1, which is 200 rupees. Next, you're going to Bird's Peak Rock. And with Bird's Peak, the fastest way there is to warp to Forest Haven and sail northeast. While you are at Bird's Peak, you can salvage the treasure from chart 36 for 200 rupees. Warp to Outset for the 7th Triforce chart, find the Savage Labyrinth, die a lot, get the 7th Triforce chart. And now we come to the part of a game that I absolutely cannot possibly take into account, and that is the search for the ghost ship. Because you have to find the chart that's on the ghost ship before you can even go looking for the shard. You may have spotted the ghost ship somewhere on your journey, but you can't get into it without the ghost ship chart. The process of finding the ghost ship and figuring out that you can't get onto it without the chart is incredibly frustrating if you are not exploring. So let's say that you're playing the game, you get frustrated, you Google it, you Yahoo search it, depending on what year it is. Maybe you go into a GameStop and buy a walkthrough because it's 2005 or whatever. Anyway, whatever you do, the walkthrough, the Google search, the Yahoo search, whatever, it'll all tell you that the ghost ship chart is located on Diamond Step Island. And the fastest way to get there is to warp to Outset and sail northeast. Once you're on Diamond Step, you can salvage chart 23 But all it is a piece of heart, but let's write it down anyway. Now the thing about the ghost ship chart is that it's got several different islands that the ghost ship could be located on depending on the phase of the moon. And again, I cannot possibly account for all of the possibilities here. But here's the truth of it. I'm primarily concerned with the amount of rupees that you have before you go to Tingle to decipher your charts, and the difference between this number in the HD version and the original version. Even if you visit all 6 islands where the ghost ship could possibly be found, the only one where additional silver rupees can be found is Starbelt Archipelago, way over here. That's 200 rupees on chart 27. However, it's like a 1 in 6 chance that you're even gonna go here, so I'm not gonna count it. And now, having collected all 8 Triforce charts, it's time to go to Tingle. But first, we have to do all of that again for the HD version, but it's not going to take as long, don't worry. There are a couple of differences in the HD version. There are a couple of extra charts that you will grab if you take this path, including charts 42 and 45. Boop. You can pick up chart 42 on Gale Isle for 200 rupees. This will counteract the fact that you do not pick up chart 40 in the HD version. Additionally, instead of being 1 rupee, chart 18 is now 50 rupees. Slightly less insult to injury there. The quest for the Triforce has been shortened, so there are only 3 islands that you need to visit before going to Tingle. It's true that you could go to all of the islands required before going to Tingle, but I'm not concerned with that. Only 3 are required. So visiting them in the most logical order, 1, 2, and 3, Great Fish to Needle Rock, sail to Islet of Steel. Then you're going to warp to Forest Haven and go to Bird's Peak Rock, which means before going to Tingle, you never need to visit Diamond Step, and you never need to visit Overlook. And you also I don't think you ever pick up chart 27 in the HD version either. So here it is, the grand total of what you visit in the required main quest only minimal exploration of the Wind Waker HD. I hope you like this map, and I hope you have treasured it because it's going away. Well, hey, look at that. It's all those numbers I've been writing down. Let's figure out just how much money we have to pay Tingle. Each chart costs 398 rupees to have deciphered. 398 times 8 is 3,184. I'm not that good at math. My script is right there. My laptop is open. I just remembered the number, which is a miracle in itself. 398 times 3 is 1,194? Yes. Again, we get these numbers from 398 rupees per chart deciphered, 8 being the number of charts that we have to get deciphered in the original, and 3 being the number of charts we have to get deciphered in the HD version. This is the number we're trying to meet. So, how much money do you have? I forgot to mention you don't pick up chart 1 in the HD version. That's important. Let's look at the treasure that we've salvaged. You've picked up silver rupees from charts 39, 34, 3, 29, 40, 35, 1, 36 in the original. Again, each of those are 200 rupees a piece. You've picked up 200 rupees from chart 42 in the HD version. You've picked up 1 rupee from chart 18 in the original and 50 rupees from chart 18 in the HD version. You've picked up 200 rupees from chart 40 and chart 1. You've also picked up 100 rupees from Outset and 100 rupees from Needle Rock in both versions. Oh, just kidding, I was wrong. You do pick up 200 rupees from chart 1 in the original, or in the HD. Smart. So if we add all this up, our grand total from the original is 1,801 rupees. And in the HD version, it's 1,850. Again, this is from adventuring alone, from salvaging alone. I'm not counting every blade of grass that you can cut down. That would be ridiculous. So let's do some math. Woo! I was gonna write it like over here, but I feel like you can't, like, I feel like it's not big enough. And like, I don't want to erase all my numbers, but I'm going to erase all my numbers. Okay, in the original version of the game, we have 1,801 rupees from adventuring alone. And in the HD version, we have 1,850 rupees. So the first thing that we have to do is subtract the cost of the postage for the incredible chart, which is 201, which leaves us with 1,600. And 1,600 $12.49. Yeah, cool. We also have to factor out the cost of the sale and the bait bag, which together is 100 rupees. I will label these. Postage, sale. Now we have to factor in the cost of bait, which is different between the versions. The cost of bait in the original is $10 for 3 servings. Which means per island, it's 3.33 repeating. And in the HD version, it's $30 for 3 servings, which means bait over here is $10 per island. That's how much it costs per island to get it on your sea chart. In the HD version, you visited a maximum of 29 islands. There are 26 islands that you visited for sure, with Five Eye Reef, Cyclops Reef, and Stonewatcher being the ones that may or may not have been visited depending on which paths you took. There are 4 islands that are freebies on your sea chart, remember that? So you only have to pay for 25 servings of bait. My brother made an excellent point, though, when I talked to him about this, in that you can only buy bait in multiples of 3. You can't just buy 1 serving of bait. So we have to round this up to the nearest multiple of 3, which is 27. I can do math. I've added the PI here. It's per island. It's not pi. Come on. So we have to divide 27 by 3 to find out how many times you've purchased bait, which is 9 times. And it was 30 rupees per time that you bought bait, and 9 times 30 is 270. So in the HD version, you have spent $270 in bait filling out your sea chart. 1549 minus 270 is 1279. So in the original version, you have visited a maximum of 30 islands at this point, 28 for sure, with the possibility of 2 extras being Five Eye Reef and Cyclops Reef. These are, again, depending on which branch you've taken. You get 4 freebies, which means there's only 26. Put the subtraction in the wrong spot. Sometimes I'm just really dumb. You've only had to use bait for 26 islands. Again, you can't buy bait in anything less than multiples of 3, which means we have to round up, and the number is still 27. You with me? Divided by the multiple of 3 to figure out how many times we purchased bait, which is again 9. Except now, each time we've purchased bait, it's only been 10 rupees, so we have spent $90 in bait. For our sea chart, which means we are at 1410. And this is our final number before we have to pay Tingle to decipher our charts. So let's do our final subtraction. 1279 minus the cost of the Triforce charts getting deciphered, which was 194. Oh my god. Which is 1,194, which again is 398 per chart times 3 charts, is 85. Yes? Okay, now we have to do the same thing over here. Now remember that the cost of getting our charts was considerably more because it's 398 per chart times 8, which equals 3,184. And 1,410 minus 384 is negative 1,774. Show your work, the math teacher said. So in the original game, you need 1,774 extra rupees in order to pay Tingle at minimum. And unless you're going to cut down every blade of grass on the island over and over and over again, which would be insane, the fastest way to make money is to go around exploring, looking for silver rupees. And if you round that up to 1,800, that's 9 more silver rupees that you have to go find just to pay him the minimum. So you need to go through your charts or go exploring for more charts and more rupees just to complete the game. This, again, doesn't account for auction costs or the amount of money you might have spent playing Battle Squid. So in reality, you're probably going to need at least 2 more rupees than that. 2 more silver rupees. You know what I meant. Luckily, you have plenty of charts left over that you haven't salvaged at all, as well as 10 islands. 10 islands that you haven't even seen yet. And in the HD remake, you have 85 rupees left over. Now again, this doesn't account for auction costs or Battle Squid costs, so in reality, you probably will be in the negative. But still, that's only like maybe 3 more silver rupees that you have to go find or salvage. And you have plenty of charts and even more islands that you haven't seen yet. But still, at minimum, you're in the black. You don't have to explore any further in order to complete the game. And if you do, it's minimal. You only need to retrieve the remaining Triforce pieces and move on. My original hypothesis was that if the player does only what is needed to complete the main quest of the game, they will see less of the world in the HD version than in the original. And as my main quest only project here has shown, you do need to visit significantly fewer islands in the HD version in order to complete the game. And as my study here concluded before getting the Triforce pieces, there's some extra information that you should know. The shards in the original game, once you have your charts deciphered, are located on Greatfish, Gale, Stonewatcher, Outset, Two-Eye Reef, Cliff Plateau Isles, Southern Triangle Island, and 7-Star Isles. And of these islands, Two-Eye Reef and 7-Star Isles don't need to be visited at all in order to finish the game in the HD version, because there is nothing Triforce related there. In fact, you don't even have to set foot on Stonewatcher or Cliff Plateau Isles in order to beat the game. All you have to do is salvage the treasure in that sector. And both of those islands have entire mini dungeons in them. Isn't that kind of nuts? And it's not like Two-Eye Reef or 7-Star Isles are particularly hard-hitting or incredibly interesting. I mean, Stonewatcher and Cliff Plateau are, in my opinion. And Two-Eye Reef does have the magic upgrade, which is really nice, but again, you don't need it. But it's the principle of it. The developers for the HD version of the game decided that some of these islands are worth sacrificing for the sake of brevity. And sure, play the game however you like. Your first playthrough probably went differently than what I have charted out, and in fact, I cannot wait to hear in the comments from people who didn't watch more than 2 minutes of this video that I did it wrong or whatever. I approached this from the point of a first-time player who didn't know anything about the game, anything about the quest, and just wanted to get it done. The bare minimum, not caring about exploration or picking up extra stuff. And indeed, you see objectively less of the world in the HD version of the game. This goes back to my original question. Does the HD version of Wind Waker discourage exploration? And yes, that seems to be the case. Answering the question of why would they do this is far more difficult a task. If I had to speculate, I'd say that fans complained about the Triforce quest taking too long. That seems to be the main complaint and the main thing that people talk about when comparing the HD to the original. So they shortened it for that reason. So they are discouraging exploration deliberately. And that's a shame, because some of the islands we never visit in the main quest are really, really neat. Horseshoe Island is mini golf, which I think is fun. Angular Isles has 2 secret caves to find. Not to mention all the fairy islands that we never got upgrades from. And also, the fact that people complained that this part of the game took too long in the first place is baffling to me, especially in retrospect. People lost their minds about Breath of the Wild being an open world game, and yet actively dislike Wind Waker in its most open world moments. And in the HD version, they gave you the speed sail, which makes getting around even faster and exploring even faster and easier. So why not keep the whole Triforce quest now that it can be done in a more timely manner, if that's what you're concerned about? Why do Zelda fans want to see less of Wind Waker when they claim that it's one of their favorite games in the franchise? I just realized that I did all this without accounting for the second wallet upgrade, which is at Northern Fairy Island, which you never visit in the main quest. So truthfully, you may not even be able to salvage all this treasure at the time that I thought you would. It really just means that you're gonna have to go to Tingle after each chart individually, which does not add on or decrease the number of islands that you visit in the original or the HD remake anyway. The numbers are still the same. My point still stands. Subscribe! Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, maybe consider subscribing or liking it or leaving me a comment or maybe even supporting me on Patreon. That would be kind of neat. Special thanks to my supporters on Patreon: Josh Ferguson, Dalton I Am the Teacup McAdoo, Brian Barnes, and Alexis Womack. Additional special thanks to my brother who stayed up late with me to run some numbers. He has a gaming channel, link in the description, Benjo Banjo. That's fun. He does Minecraft and stuff. Yeah, thanks for watching.